So over the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at intrusive thoughts, and Matt and I were talking about intrusive thoughts the other day online. We were on Slack talking about this because I think when we talk about intrusive thoughts and questions about thoughts are the most common questions that come up in the Everybody Has a Brain community. But I think often we just take it for granted that intrusive thoughts are bad, and then we focus on like how do we get rid of them. And so when Matt and I were talking about intrusive thoughts the other day, we started to explore just the question of like, so what is an intrusive thought? Like why do we dislike some thoughts and we're totally okay with other thoughts? And so I kind of like, do you like how now that we talked about it a bit, Matt, how do you think this is totally off the cuff? How do you think you define an intrusive thought?
So I actually watched a video of Mark's before we started talking about this, and Mark kind of describes it as a shout in the street or somebody like kind of shouting at you, and usually it's your brain. Maybe it'll be a person, but yeah. I do feel like for me it's more like a whisper almost. I would say usually it's not a shout. So like a thought that kind of keeps coming back, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. So something that will have a chance of just repeating and repeating again, and make me concentrate on that, so that I get kind of stuck in this loop of thinking about that intrusive thought versus what I was already doing, and I end up chasing that thought more than what I should be doing, whatever I was doing before that thought came along.
What you just touched on there, I think, for me was the key insight with intrusive thoughts, that it's not really the thought, it's that I end up spending time and energy doing things I don't actually want to do. Because sometimes it's the shout in the street and it's something horrible, like, you're going to burn down the apartment, or you're going to get fired from your job, or you're going to like kill babies and eat them, and you think, okay, like those are bad intrusive thoughts. But I really like that you called it a whisper, because I feel most of the time it's just something saying, oh, like, maybe you should quit your job.
Yeah.
And then what I would do in the past, then I would be like, oh yeah, maybe I should. And then I would spend like the whole week, all my free time that week, like researching other jobs that I should do. And and that was the same thing though. So in a sense, we might say, oh, like worrying about whether you should quit your job is like rational, and we should all do that. But for me, it was also fear fueled, right? I would, really it was coming from this fear. Oh no, I'm not in the right job, or I'm not going to make enough money, or something like that. And so then I would be just reacting to that fear.
Yeah.
And I'd put all my time into it. And then at the end, I would still just be annoyed that I spent all my time. And so it was useful to see that reacting to a thought of, oh, I should change my job is no different from reacting to a thought of, oh, like, did I just like run over a baby on the street?
When I saw your video and I started to think about, oh, what are intrusive thoughts for me? They're all over the place. Like they could be really intense ones. Yeah. Like if I don't do this thing, it'll make something really bad happen, like disaster wise. And that things will totally spin out of control. Like I might get in a car crash, or I might get in a situation where something causes a fire, or, like something really basic, like not turning off the stove, or like things that I'll think about and loop over just because they get in there. And because I can't like get out of it sometimes, but
exactly. Just because
brains. Yeah.
It's like brains.
Yeah.
Brains.
So I think for me, it when I thought about it, it was more subtle. And I feel like when I thought about it, most of my intrusive thoughts happen for some reason, like when I'm in a conversation or talking to people. I think sometimes just weird thoughts will come in and spin out of control, and then sometimes I have to stop talking, like just to think about them and like either put them away or find a way to deal with them. Usually it's like triggered by something, like if I'm talking to somebody about a certain issue.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think sometimes because I have, I I don't know. I think especially if it's like a new person that I'm talking to, I already have some like social anxiety issues that I always try to get over. So I'm also thinking about how do I how do I get over these issues again if it's a new person I'm talking to. So I feel like those
Yeah.
could help maybe trigger intrusive thoughts too, but I don't know why, but that's kind of why that's what happens. Like if it's a conversation about a sensitive topic, like if I were to talk about politics or if I were to talk about like class issues or something like that with somebody, and like it'll just
Yeah.
sometimes set off something that, you know, will be in my head that will just keep repeating over and over.
Brains are useless. I'll tell you. Brains are, yeah. But I think this is where we see intrusive thoughts, because I think a lot of the times we approach intrusive thoughts as their own issue, and we'd say, oh, like I see this a lot. People say, oh, like I don't, it's not interfering with my life. I just want to get rid of the intrusive thoughts. But then I think when we talk about this, like this is why it's so useful to talk about. We start to see the ways that it interferes with our lives. It's not always on a big scale, like changing careers or something like that, but it's the little ways. Like we're having a conversation with somebody, and then we basically stop having that conversation, or we change the course of the conversation as a reaction to the
Yeah.
thoughts. And I think it really helped me to see, like in the past I wouldn't have thought of that as a compulsion or problematic, but then I started to see, oh, like I'm totally putting these thoughts in charge of my life. Like every time I run into that little feeling of uncomfortableness, I would like change direction, and then it was like I wasn't in charge of the direction I
Yeah.
went anymore.
I could think of situations where I would just leave the conversation because I wasn't comfortable of continuing it. So, yeah.
I think it's this. So what we were talking about today is like doing an exercise, and I think it's what you're just describing there that I found so useful to explore, because I would, whatever the topic of the thought was. So say like I had all sorts of intrusive thoughts and compulsions around talking to people, and so it might have been, I don't know, like I would start to think, oh, like maybe I'm annoying them, so I
Yeah.
should leave. Like I shouldn't have this conversation, or maybe I'm interrupting them or whatever. So yeah, I would leave, or it might be like, oh, maybe there's something in my teeth, or like maybe my fly's down and I'm gonna be really embarrassed when they notice. So I should just walk away and like subtly check my teeth, check my fly, both at the same time, and then I can go have a conversation again. And but I started to see by digging into these, it was really useful, because then I started to see that it wasn't always the topic. Like I would have said, oh, I have intrusive thoughts of like having my fly down or having something in my teeth. But digging into them helped me see that actually I wasn't having a million different intrusive thoughts. They were just different ways my brain was trying to worry about the same thing, which is often like I was not going to, like people were going to dislike me. We get a lot of questions about like, so after you do the exercise to dig into your fears and uncover kind of the roots underneath them, what do you do with that? So Matt, you volunteered to actually go through this exercise. So we're going to explain the exercise today, and then on the next video, do the results of the exercise and talk about what you do. So this is called the 5 whys.
You start with a question, in this case, what thought you're having trouble with, and then asking a further question, why do you feel like that, or what prompted that, maybe.
Yeah.
And you keep asking that question, why, 5 times until you get to
5 times.
hopefully the deeper problem of what caused all of that. So it's just an easy way of kind of uncovering how you get to that original thing that caused that problem.
Yeah, and it often ends up being a consequence, right? That often, because I think the amazing thing with this is you realize how your brain is only trying to help you. There's these things we're afraid of for a variety of reasons. We've decided, okay, I'm scared of these things. And then our brains, very helpfully, just try to think of all of the different ways that those horrible things could happen.
Yeah.
And so we don't like that. Like we see that as intrusive thoughts, but it's just your brain, because if you believe X is really bad, then your brain is going to try to come up with every single way that X could happen. Okay, after you identify that consequence, what do you do with that? How do you start to peel back all of the beliefs and labels that we've stuck on that that terrifying consequence. Because once we're not afraid of that anymore, then the brain doesn't have to keep coming up with ways to worry about it. And then it's done and we move on. And life is wonderful and we all have an alpaca farm.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Matt's going to share his results from that next time. So I'd say to anybody out there, if you have questions about the 5 whys exercise, or you want to do it together in the comment section down below, throw that down in the comments down there. We can work through that. And then in the next video, talk about, okay, what do we do with that, with those results, to really start to peel off all of those, would it really end up just being unhelpful beliefs that, kind of lead to our brains on this like misery rat wheel